Yeah, let's get started. This video will not be ended with as much as an intro because this is a longer video. But how did you like the video, the last video, with showing your psychic abilities and how actually they were doing this way back before most of you were born, doing these trials, creating technology to harness people's psychic abilities and powers in the Kremlin. And just because it's there don't mean it ain't here. Come on now. I'm not surprised by it. So we're going to follow up with this. We're going to remember the word Vril. We're going to have another video. We're going to do Robert Suffer, who took a big hiatus the last through the summer, where he didn't put out, he went like a while without putting out any videos, and now it started as week to week. And this one was right after that one, was about Vril energy, technology. World War II used Germany technology, UFOs, flying saucers looking things, how it was great. This goes back to the Vivana, which is in all the Hindu writings, or in the Hindu ancient writings about the Vivana, which was a spaceship, which is very ancient. We're not finding new and created technology, man. This stuff's ancient. That's why when we even go into deeper places, you start realizing, I'm just going to throw out some real deep right here, real deep. If you can wrap your head around it, great. Most haven't experienced in the depth. Maybe you've touched it, tasted a piece of it before. I know I have, but not continually abiding in it. It's that, but have tasted it. So one thing is, we look at history, right? We look at history. We look at past, present, future. But really, this is not linear. Looking for something to give an example. Perfect, right here. Maybe this will work. It's not going to work. Okay, I'm going to use this in a different way. Dang it. Maybe this. We see history. I don't know if you can see this. This might even be better right here, what I'm going to do. We see history as say, I don't know if you can see that well. It's loop. You can maybe see that in the background, maybe through my eyes. We see history as this, say this is the past right here, and this is the future. But this really isn't how it works. It only appears to us in the lower levels of density that this is how it works. Past, this side, future, this side. It's really looped, the feedback loop. This is how it actually works. It's it's connected quantum entanglement. That's why when you go into the higher spaces, your past is your future is the past. And now is both, where they all now are actually simultaneously happening at the same time, your experiences. That's why, what do we always hear? Do you believe in past lives? Past, but we never talk about future lives, because we see everything, we have the mindset, and it's explainable. I mean, the way we see things as being linear. It's not linear. It's a loop, like I just showed you. It's a loop instead of linear. I could have used my arm, it loops. Instead of linear, like a belt, I could have used a belt. It loops. So we keep having the same experience. That's why ancient technology is just coming back. It looped back. That's why we keep having feedback loops of the same behaviors over and over in samsara. But this is not what this is about. I'm just showing you the ancient technology where you think, oh, this is brand new, they're doing it. The German, when you start really getting into to Germany, nothing ain't what you thought it was. They were having this capabilities of ships back in the 30s. The TV was used there first. You know who the first TV star was? Hitler. What am I saying? But now I'm going to jump right. This is going to tie the last video into this video, but also it's going to tie this one other thing is, do you remember how they said we can use this and affect everybody, or we can go specific? They even showed the Russian prime minister, or I think that he was there after the Berlin Wall fell, that how they were stuck, right? And they were stuck in their situation. And then he had a heart attack, and there was actually saying they were using that technology to cause heart attacks. And then I was thinking when I was watching the video, when we all watched it together, I watched it before. I watched it once before, that, man, they could do it to the multitude at once if really. What am I saying is using our energy, and we don't know it because we have no knowledge of self. We have the masses, many of us are waking up. Being woken up, right? We have a huge awakening of changes happening. A lot of things are happening fast. We have all this stuff happening, changes with even being real about certain things, about even stuff that you wouldn't hear 3, 4 years about the government saying, when they would say that's the tinfoil hats. That's them, the tinfoil hats. That's the conspiracy theorist. And you're like, they're saying they really were right. And this is on either, if it's not on the regular mainstream, we'll get into streams because you're a soul stream, but that's a whole different story. Kind of goes into this. But why? I said they have these different arenas, stadiums. Why? Because there's a harvesting of energy by your emotions when you're there for the home team to get beat in an NBA Finals, NFL World Super Bowl at home, or your championship games at home. Drain the folks. They go, they spiral down because they're not happy. They had all this thing. That's why I started understanding that this stuff is not. You think Hollywood's scripted? You don't think the NFL is? I know it is. I learned it from gematria a few years ago, and even gotten gematria enough to do what? I bet, because I stayed in the gematria community, learned it, and we would have stuff like this, where we get together when you paid in your Patreon. This is how the games look to go through the scripting of, because it's all gematria based on numbers. It's being honest. Learned it. And went away from a few playoff series and a few playoff years. No losses. All greenback dollars came to my way. Super Bowls. this is not to get into this, we're gonna get into Vril, but what I was showing you, the harnessing of energy, the energetic field. And when we don't know, they were trying to harness these our psychic abilities when we don't even harness them for ourselves. And that's my challenge to us as a community and unity. Harvest and learn this. I'm gonna do something a while ago, a few years ago on my videos, I did a 5-part series on clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, all the clairs. I may have to redo that and revisit it from a different mindset now, how important it is. And I'm really thinking about it, even though I did do it. But if you want to, go look at my past videos, I talked about that. But we don't have time to talk, and D-Boy's talking, because I do have a Robert Seffer to connect the last video to this one with the Vril technology in Germany. The last one we were seeing was where? It was all about the Russians doing it, Soviet Union doing it, right? But now we're going to do it in another place. Vril energy, right? In German UFO technology. Let's go. I'll be pausing it here and there. I'm going to try to play it more through, but you know where to get the commercials. And I'm sorry about the stupid 4 or 5 second wasteful commercials that come in. I definitely in my teaching here, I'm not making any money. Obviously, and I don't ask for money. That may change. I've retired. I may start just, saying, hey, send me on a platform, send money if you're interested or whatever. And even as we grow, going to Patreon. But this costs to cut out commercials. I don't know the price, because I really don't know the price. Anybody knows, send me a thing I can find out, because they always send it me, because I'm always trying to go in there when I'm watching something on YouTube, because I watch YouTube more than anything else. So I'm sitting there as far as anything I watch. I'll go in there and try to make get rid of them. So if they're giving me 20 or 30-minute commercials, I'm like, go off, go back in. And sometimes it works. It takes me to 5 seconds, but they keep asking me, do you want to upgrade and have no commercials? I don't know how much that is, but it might be a good thing since I do use videos from YouTube. But anyways, let's go. This is Walter Russell. Great. Definitely a very spiritual man. I will break down Walter Russell pretty soon too. He's one of the persons I want to cover. There's a few others. I want to cover Casey, Edgar Casey, Walter Russell, and let's go, because this is the 30-minute video, so I keep talking. I'm so excited.
Dr. Walter Russell was an American painter, sculptor, mystic, and author. Born in 1871 and passed away in 1963, his book, The Universal One, aimed to explain the universe through a mind-centered, electromagnetic perspective. Russell's work attempted to bridge science and spirituality, suggesting that the universe is fundamentally composed of light, and that all matter is an extension of this light, controlled by the mind or consciousness. His ideas challenged conventional scientific thought of his time, particularly in how he viewed energy, matter, and the nature of the universe. While Russell's ideas were met with skepticism by the scientific community due to their departure from the established physics, his work was also praised by Nikola Tesla, who once told him, quote, "Bury your findings until humanity is ready."
Wow.
In his book, Russell says, quote, "Sex is the apparent division of the father-mother substance of mind into apparent opposites. This division is due to the opposite desires of electricity and magnetism, expressed in the action and reaction of the thinking process. Sex is the active desire of mind for division into opposites, and its reactive desire for unity. Sex is that motive force which demands separability into two, and equally desires union of the apparent two into one. Sex force is the builder of the apparently many things out of the reality of the one thing. Man's concept of sex as beginning with organic life is a wrong concept.
Wow.
Sex is as absolute in the elements as in the complexities and compounds of the elements. Sex and life and light and intelligence are in and of all things from the beginning. The sex principle is as much part of the granite rock or bar of iron as it is of man. Sex is an electromagnetic equalizer of matter and motion. Sex is the apparent division of the one force into electricity and magnetism, two opposite forces, positive and negative, which are in reality but the two pulsations of the one force. Sex is as the apparent division of all things into their opposites, male and female. All things are both male and female. Apparent opposites of the indivisible substance of universal mind are not content to remain in the state of apparent opposition. All creating things are but the ideas of divine mind. All thinking is registered in light. All light is sex expression. Light is the language of all thinking. Light is the energy of all thinking. There is no other energy. Tesla was so awed by Russell's philosophy on cosmology and the nature of the universe that he told him to lock his findings in a time capsule for 1,000 years because, in his opinion, mankind was not prepared for it.
Governments.
While he never reached the scientific fame of Nikola Tesla or Thomas Edison, his work did find a niche following among those interested in alternative science, philosophy.
The niche would be the spiritual folks of that time, were the ones were his niche that's seeing this, because everything he said makes sense. Because when you go into even ancient practices of Tantra, that's all about building up your sexual energy, because the two become one. And when somebody says, "Oh, sex," no, that's everything has the opposite. You can use anything bad or good. That's the problemo here. We have too many folks running amok and not balanced, and doing it for that of mankind, but doing it that for selfish greed and power. Let's continue. I'm not going to get definitely, but Walter Russell, I definitely have to look into this guy more.
and spiritualism, attempting to unify science with a spiritual understanding of the cosmos, though it remains outside of mainstream scientific acceptance. He was able to articulate a bridge between light, sound, color, form, and divine consciousness, which many suggest was a precursor or a parallel with modern quantum theories and the concept of consciousness affecting reality. The events that facilitated Walter Russell's insights into consciousness started when he was 7 years old, when he had his first out-of-body experience. At 14 years of age, he was reportedly pronounced dead after an attack of black diphtheria,
No,
but
7 and then
claimed he was
14.
asked to return during another out-of-body
7 by
experience.
multiples, both
He also
experiences.
claimed at some point to have been struck by lightning. Much later, in the 1920s, at the age of 50, and after meeting Nikola Tesla, Walter published and copyrighted his revolutionary spiral-shaped periodic chart of the elements. This dramatically different and artistic representation predicted new elements and shocked the scientific world by claiming there were in fact atomic conditions below hydrogen, and additionally, many more heavy radioactive elements to be discovered. Walter saw the spiral form, now so familiar to us, as the primary arrangement for the atomic and molecular assemblies of the universe. Walter's artistic ability let him illustrate his three-dimensional universe as a two-dimensional graphic, populated with cryptic notes. He would go on to produce dozens of these puzzling and artistic graphic representations of his theories of space, time, motion, and the cosmos, as well as over a dozen books explaining his theories, which seem to parallel little-known ancient wisdom passed down since antiquity regarding a universal life force energy, referred to as qi in Buddhist and Taoist philosophy, described as a vital energy that flows through the body and all things giving life. Prana in Vedic texts, known as the source of life that runs through the body's chakra or energy centers, and Vril in European mystery schools, used to describe the bio-electromagnetic energy that can be harnessed to facilitate elevated states of consciousness, vitality, and spiritual awareness. These techniques became the guarded knowledge of occult secret societies, including an understanding of internal alchemy, or the esoteric transmutation of sex energy. Hello. Can I have a selfie?
Yeah. Woo! Have a nice day.
You too. At the age of 77, he left his wife of 50 years in 1946 after receiving a mysterious phone call from a Daisy Stebbing, a 44-year-old English model and businesswoman who Walter married and opened a foundation and museum for his work. She changed her name to Lao after Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, and they continued to publish his theories until his death in 1963.
I am a primary care physician. I'm frustrated, and it is not what I signed up for.
At the heart of Walter Russell's philosophy lies the concept of light.
Yes.
Quote, God, the Creator, divides his one light by extending its oneness into electrical tensions of vibrating red and blue pairs. The tensions of this electrical division are equaled by a desire for unity, which is attained at the point of white incandescence in matter. Unity thus attained is repeated forever by the same dividing, uniting process of electrical action-reaction pulsations.
United.
Reproduction
Remember that.
cannot take place
It's gonna serve you
until the
later
red
in
and
the
blue
videos.
lights of sex-divided motion.
When he said unified and unity, I've shared with many, and if you're new here, that when I usually do videos, they connect, and there'll always be the crumbs, because many of you who are new, I want you to be able to decode mystery. So there'll be crumbs, and the key word for next video is unity, what he just said. That electromagnetic, the division of electromagnetic and electricity, right? The feminine and masculine, and the unity that it would bring. unity. We talk about this with when we talk about doing the not transition. There's a word I'm thinking, and I'm not. It's not rolling off my tongue. But when we merge the opposites within us, not transmutate, which is part of it, but I'm thinking of transgression, integration, not transgression, integration.
Are voided in the still white light of the Creator. Man alone, of all creation, ever knows his omniscience. For him, light represented the animating principle of the universe, the source of all motion, rhythm, sound, color, texture, taste, smell, and feeling. It was the ultimate expression of divine intelligence and the key to unlocking human potential. Russell believed that we must learn to control and release light energy within ourselves if we hope to evolve as a species, honoring the sacred feminine aspect of creation and developing a deep reverence for nature as the mirror reflection of God. Some of his esoteric mysticism was mirrored in Germanic organizations such as the Vril Society, which also researched occult topics ranging from metaphysics, higher potentials of human consciousness, and advanced anti-gravitic propulsion. These occult organizations were incorporated into the research department of the SS before and during World War II, which allegedly developed prototype anti-gravitic saucer technology, which was reported during the war as Foo Fighters, and ignited the modern
Is that
UFO
where the band
era
got its name
with
from?
sightings such as the documented case as the battle over Los Angeles, and after the war, when a segment of nationalist Germany refused to surrender and allegedly retreated to a subterranean base in Antarctica and was victorious in a failed Allied attempt in 1946 to destroy it during Operation High Jump, and said to have been responsible for incidents such as the saucer crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and the UFO fly over the White House in 1952.
Vivana. Hovering.
Are you looking to establish your business
Commercial.
using an address other than your home? Well, at iPostal One.
The crafts were named Vril, and Vril in Germanic language means the life force. Basically, craft utilizing the never exhaustible, always automatically replenishable life force. And then in a book on ancient occult, German occult traditions, they had a chart of the runic characters, and this is the runic character for the life force. So it all drives together. The name of the craft, Vril, the meaning of the word Vril, and the pictorial symbol on the bottom all mean the same thing, the life force. So we were able to decipher this little puzzle here. 17 of the Vrils were produced. Quite probably they were tested quietly, low-key testing, and then they were flown to the German South Polar colony. We will talk about it in detail pretty soon. And these are low-level photographs, the first real photographs of such craft in low-level flights over the testing grounds in Germany. It's probably the autumn of 1944. The leaves are gone from the trees. In this photograph, we can see the head of the pilot through the transparent perspex cupola of the craft. A very steep maneuver. possibly the craft is moving in this direction upward because of all the edges. These and these edges are blurred. This happens usually with the edges, with the attacking and the trailing edge of the craft. Those lines are parts of the drive. In this enlarged photograph, we see an even better picture of the pilot inside. These two dark spots here could be the sunglasses that the pilot was wearing. The craft could go 2,900 kilometers in the atmosphere, almost 2 times the.
So we're looking at this in the 40s, and if you notice, when we get from like the middle, early 50s and late 50s, we're talking about, we start seeing Roswell, and we start getting into Hollywood. We start getting bombarded with what? Science fiction. It goes hand in hand. This was done by humans. By the German, this flying saucer, which it would end up being the stablemate of what we're calling aliens flying in it in the 50s, 60s. Yeah. Yeah. One more time. Yeah. So when I see this, it makes sense to me that you would have different things like this. But what they said, they were using Vril, they were using that, harnessing that energy. And that's heavy that they were using that, harnessing that energy at that time. But it makes sense as the more and more I find out. That's why they had superior technology to the Allies. The Allies just had numbers. The Allies' biggest thing in the World War II was the numbers of people, right? You're dealing with one and another helper and a third one, and you're dealing with all the allies being allied together to go against this force. And I'm not going to get into what happened in the propaganda, even about Germany, which there is from the West that we've all been taught. I'm not saying everything was perfect there, but it's not everything seems to be what it seems to be also. And I've known this from doing studying and getting good stuff from this man too, and some other people about, this is a man that's an anthropologist in academia who kind of turned from, not kind of, said academia walked away because he didn't like the ganda that went with it, if you know what I mean, of definitely having agendas that people are not true. And then when you kind of go back into time, when you see other scholastic people from the early 1900s and 1800s, they were writing books back then about propaganda and agendas that were being paid to people to push agendas they said were factually not true. Not true. So, yeah.
Speed of sound. It definitely had the exoatmospheric and orbital capabilities. And I have a suspicion that these were free energy craft that did not need any fuel to fly. Once they were
energy, no fuel.
Put in motion, I mean, their gravity drives.
Well, we could go for that today.
Activated.
So they were already doing this.
Need any more fuel.
80 years ago.
This stuff right here fixed my back pain. Now check this out.
I get frustrated.
I had cancer.
And we can see low-level flights, probably the autumn, early autumn of 44, the leaves are still on the trees. This visible asymmetricity here.
So Vladimir
It looks like the
Terzisky,
cabin has been blown
I would think
back
he'd be
with
maybe
strong
Russian or
wind.
Eastern
Kind of a
European.
cake melting in our refrigerator, just taken out of the fridge. Bigger craft, the Hollywood 2 type craft, which were 25 meter diameter, about 75 meter diameter tank killers, were also produced. They had one big drive, a ball in the middle, which was a tachyon drive, an electromagnetic-gravitic drive, which they were calling the tachyon drives. The Thule tachyonators. The Thule tachyon drives were produced on assembly lines. They had an assembly line production of tachyon drives in their AEG and Siemens plants in 44 and 45. So in these
1944, 45, guys. So
they had more than enough space and fantasy and guts to build.
Think about that. If they were doing that 45, it wasn't created then. It was already there because they had to make it, manufacture it before they used it. They're using it in 44, 45. So when do they know about it? 38, 37, maybe before that, the technology? Nothing here is what we've been told. Just know that.
These
It's part of our awakening.
incredible flying machines. Armaments were added. These are machine guns in 3 turrets.
They're using it for war.
On this photograph, we see some of the armaments here clearly visible. Something is sticking menacingly from the underside of the craft. A shot from the underside shows the Luftwaffe cross, either the 4 legs or 4 small machine gun turrets, and something that looks very suspicious. Something here that we would see very soon resembles like a tank turret with a gun sticking out. These were really the tank killers of the Hollywood 2 type. They were designed to fight whole tank armies. The skeptics would say, well, it's impossible what a stupid idea. It's impossible to put a tank turret on a saucer because it would never lift off. A tank turret is about 10-15 tons. It's alone is 2/3 or maybe half the weight of the tank. However, the Germans claim that these craft were 100 tons in weight, armed with brute steel plates. They did not have developed at the time the force field shields around the craft that they developed later on.
They developed force field later.
Relying on brute steel armor.
My chief, section chief, started through my background. And of course, it says all of this stuff that I had done in the Navy. So he puts me in this think tank inside of Douglas in a walled-off area. And there's 200 guys in it. And we investigate every aspect of extraterrestrial, military, commercial, whatever. So we had a young girl, Nordic, just outside of Germany. She had developed I think she had 8 girls. They were continually talked to telepathically to go and design spaceships. The little blonde actually built them. And eventually 2 of those got over here in Area 51. But Germany found out about the blonde, took her over, stopped everything, and then got to this point where there was some sort of pressurized program by the SS to control that original group. Now, several times they did work together, but Hitler allowed them to operate independently of the whole SS program, the whole development. So we had 2 developments going on in Germany. The girls didn't want their vehicles to be used for anything else but travel. They were afraid that somebody would get a hold of it and they use it for military.
Wow, so the girls were,
which is, of course,
not war minds,
what they got.
Conscious girls.
But the girls finally ended up in Antarctica. So there's cities manufacturing everything that you would need on a planet. 4 years before the war was over, it was decided that the war could possibly be lost, but if we win it, we still need to get out of the area because the Allies are going to bomb us off of the earth and there won't be anything here left for us. So they decided to move everything to Antarctica. Animal Bird are going to go down there and they were going to take out the whole thing in 1 week. The top people in every area of the Navy, best aircraft, best ships, best weapons, everything.
Wow.
And 5 weeks later, things didn't look very good. When we got down there, they had decided they were going to have one thrust from the west side of Antarctica and then the opposite side coming into both of them towards the center of the continent. And so before we even got all the guys...
This has never been taught to us. We don't know anything about this part of the end of 2. They said it was 46, but this is from their sources. This guy here, intelligence, telling you the story of what happened. I'm aware of the story. I've known about this for a while, about them creating the under earth, and creating cities and, leisure and having all the needs. They were very prepared to get away. And they did this. And even now, I kind of can see why you would see, or we're thinking certain things that maybe there's some people here preparing to go under during certain times. Could that be part of the Great Reset? Just think about it. Just think about it.
Around, and I'm
We've always
talking
had
about
cataclysms.
big 4-engine
I'll leave it at
flying
that.
boats, okay, and ships, battleships and destroyers and submarines and you name it. Before they got there, these fairly large, they were 100-foot diameter saucers came up out of the ocean and took down everything. The pictures of
Just like some 50s or 60s science fiction, right? The Blob, or because you're looking at 50s and 60s. That's when they started pushing science fiction. It goes hand in hand, guys. I'm telling you, it's just an extension of the wood. It's just an extension of it for us to be. You know what I mean? It begins with a P, because you got to do it for yourself, right? Yeah, heavy. So that's how they got away. They used the Vril energy, and it was called Vivana. You can find about Vivana the stories of Vivana go back to the Indian and the Vedics.
Photographs of some of the German UFOs. Many of the close-ups give you a little clearer picture of the cross on them.
Mm-hmm.
Comrade Kamala Harris doesn't have much to offer. She has no policies, no solutions.
That's funny. Call her comrade.
We lost that war.
Wow.
For more on Antarctica,
Wow.
Operation High Jump, and what happened before, during, and after World War II, check out my video called Antarctica Disclosure. There should be a link to it in the description. This declassified CIA document from 1953 says, quote, "A German newspaper recently published an interview with George Klein, famous German engineer and aircraft expert, describing the experimental construction of flying saucers carried out by him from 1941 to 1945.
There it is.
Klein stated that he was present when, in 1945, the first piloted flying saucer took off and reached a speed of 1,300 miles per hour within 3 minutes. The experiments resulted in 3 designs. One designed by Meade was a dish-shaped aircraft 135 feet in diameter, which did not rotate. Another designed by Habermal and Schriever consisted of a large rotating ring, in the center of which was a round, stationary cabin for the crew. When the Soviets occupied Prague, the Germans destroyed every trace of the Flying Saucers project, and nothing more was heard of Habermal and his assistants. Shriver recently died in Bremen, where he had been living. In Breslau, the Soviets managed to capture one of the saucers built by Meade, who escaped to France. He is reportedly in the US at present. This declassified CIA document from 1952 is titled Flying Saucers in East Germany and says, quote, "Furnished with the sworn testimony of an eyewitness, Oskar Link, a 45-year-old German and former mayor of Gleimershausen, West Berlin intelligence officers have begun investigating a most unusual flying saucer story. According to this story, an object resembling a huge flying pan and having a diameter of about 15 meters landed in a forest clearing in the Soviet zone of Germany. Link recently escaped from the Soviet zone along with his wife and 6 children. Link and his 11-year-old daughter, Gabriella, made the following sworn statement last week before a judge. Quote, "While I was returning to my home with Gabriella, a tire of my motorcycle blew out near the town of Hassenbach. While we were walking along towards Hassenbach, Gabriella pointed out something which lay at a distance about 140 meters away from us. Since it was twilight, I thought that she was pointing at a young deer. I left my motorcycle near a tree and walked towards the spot which Gabriella had pointed out. When, however, I reached the spot about 55 meters from the object, I realized that my first impression had been wrong. What I had seen were 2 men who were now about 40 meters away from me. They seemed to be dressed in some shiny metallic clothing. They were stooped over and were looking at something laying on the ground. I approached until I was only about 10 meters from them. I looked over a small fence, and then I noticed a large object whose diameter I estimated to be between 13 and 15 meters. It looked like a huge frying pan. There were 2 rows of holes on its periphery, about 30 centimeters in circumference. The space between the 2 rows was about 0.45 meters. On the top of this metal object was a black conical tower about 3 meters high. At that moment, my daughter, who had remained a short distance behind me, called me. The 2 men must have heard my daughter's voice because they immediately jumped on the conical tower and disappeared inside. I had previously noted that one of the men had a lamp on the front part of his body which lit up at regular intervals. Now the side of the object on which the holes had been opened began to glitter. Its color seemed green but later turned to red. At the same time, I began to hear a slight hum. I then noted that the whole object had risen slowly from the ground. The cylinder on which it was supported had now disappeared within the center and had reappeared on the top of the object. The rate of climb had now become greater. At the same time, my daughter and I heard a whistling sound similar to that heard when a bomb falls. The object rose to a horizontal position, turned toward a neighboring town, and then, gaining altitude, it disappeared over the heights and forest in the direction of Stockheim. Many other persons who live in the same area as Link later related that they saw an object which they thought to be a comet. A shepherd stated that he thought that he was looking at a comet moving away at a low altitude from the height on which Link stood. After submitting his testimony to the judge, Link made the following statement. I would have thought that both my daughter and I were dreaming if it were not for the following element involved. When the object had disappeared, I went to the place where it had been. I found a circular opening in the ground, and it was quite evident that it was freshly dug. It was exactly the same shape as the conical tower. I was then convinced that I was not dreaming. Link continued, I had never heard of the term flying saucer before I escaped from the Soviet zone into West Berlin. When I saw this object, I immediately thought that it was a new Soviet military machine. I confess that I was seized with fright because the Soviets do not want anyone to know about their work. Many persons have been restricted to their movements for many years in East Germany because they know too much. Regardless of whether the alleged saucer-shaped craft was Soviet or not, it was likely based on designs obtained from the nationalist Germans, if not belonging to the Nazis themselves. The story reminds me of the abduction case of Barney Hill, who along with his wife Betty had an encounter in 1961 with what they described as a flying saucer whose occupants, according to the publicly available hypnosis session, described officers wearing SS uniforms. I couldn't help but think of the numerous similar UFO cases involving tall, blonde, blue-eyed, Nordic-looking passengers on disc-shaped craft as I headed off towards Palm Springs to attend a UFO conference called Contact in the Desert, where I was invited last minute by some friends, as one never knows who they might meet along the way.
very interesting stuff there, right? Let me put this out. I hit that again, and it did the same thing again. Yeah, it did the same thing again. So, definitely awesome. How do you look at this? The classified material showing this stuff, not all your conspiracy theories. That's what you think. Where'd that come from? No, receipts there. Receipts for even the other one, classified, the video that preceded this, telling you this is a time of a lot of disclosure is happening. A lot of things that in the day was you be classified as, oh, that's the tinfoil hatters again, going off the rails, when really they were telling you the truth because it was being, and now things are coming to disclosure with a lot of things. I could talk all about a lot of things, but the technology that they had, and then you got to also look at what happened after that war, right? That Soviet Union got scientists and America got scientists, and they hired them and put them in their government when at a time they were supposed to go under for war crimes, right? But that's not what happened. They used them for here, you got Operation Paperclip. There's a show about it. I mean, there's movies about it. There's a series about this on Prime about this. But this stuff getting into the Vibana, getting into it was hovering. I mean, it was from what it's possibly said by natural energy that was making these things fly and giving them their energetic field. The Vril Society, which was those girls who were connected, who didn't want it used for war and destruction, just for their travel. They would meditate, very powerful. You seen the picture when they keep showing the girl with the blonde hair, and then she has 6, 7, 8 women. This is all documented. This is facts, folks. Definitely things aren't what we think they are here. So when they keep running you into green goblins coming from outer space, you need to take that. I don't care if it's from conscious community. A lot of feeding of crap out there. And know them who do really labor among you, and those who are really, like I said, that discernment needs to be on. Because some people definitely need to have discernment turned on to see clearly about certain shit. I just said it. Yeah, I cussed. And I don't try to cuss here too much. I don't throw F-bombs like some all the time, some of the people I know who I like. But anyways, you guys have a great day. All right, you guys have a great day.